like our nativity scene that we have out. It's really pretty. I know that if I was probably sitting in the audience, I'd just really want to look at the nativity scene. But for this sermon, it's okay, because that's what the sermon is about. When we look at the nativity scene, there's really two individuals that catch our eye, that grab our attention, that melt our hearts. Mary and Jesus. Who could resist looking at a cute baby and the glowing happiness of a new mom? And then there's Joseph, Mary's fiancé. He takes a back seat in this whole story. He's the quiet one. They don't really pay attention to him. No one walks away from a nativity scene talking about Joseph. Today's gospel reading gives a rare glimpse at Joseph. This narrative tells us the story before the story. We get to find out what happens before the peaceful, silent night of the nativity scene. What I find to be most interesting about this passage is that while Joseph is this main character, we only really see his actions. We are experiencing what is happening from a bird's eye view. We don't get to hear Joseph speaking. We are not informed of his thoughts or feelings about what is going on. I bet like anybody, if your fiancé had gotten mysteriously pregnant and you know it wasn't your child, that you would have an opinion. A few choice words to say. Even more, I wonder how much conversation went when Mary had to explain to Joseph that she was pregnant. I don't think it was a joyous event. Like the exciting baby announcements that couples post on Facebook. It was probably closer to the drama of reality TV. Like an episode of MTV's Teen Mom. I bet there was a flood of emotions that filled Joseph's mind as he heard this news. Feelings of shock and disbelief. Probably thought Mary had lost her mind. Flood of anger could have consumed him at the thought that someone had taken advantage of his sweet Mary. Or worse, she had cheated on him. Many thoughts must have ran through his mind. I could just hear them now. Why did this happen to me and my future wife? I don't want to raise someone else's child. I want to raise my own. But if Mary's right, why did God pick her to carry this child? God never consulted me before this little arrangement. But after this news had sunk in, Joseph was debating really what to do. He was thinking about breaking off this engagement quietly, so both of them could go on their separate ways. He loved her, and he didn't want to publicly humiliate her, especially with her kooky story of angels. This part of the Christmas story is like a nightmare. It's definitely not the peaceful story to tell at Christmas Eve around the fireplace. This is not the end. In true godlike fashion, Joseph has an encounter with the holy that changes his perspective and whole outlook on life. What God could not teach him in his waking hours, God taught him in sleep. Sometimes God uses the impossible to communicate to us, to get our attention. An angel came to Joseph in a dream and told him, "Don't be afraid. God is bringing this child into the world as an expression of God's love for all people." the angel had one request for Joseph, that he would name this child Jesus, which means God saves. He woke up from that dream and did exactly what the angel commanded. He took Mary to be his wife. And months later, Mary had that beautiful baby boy. Flood of emotions must have consumed Joseph when he thought of this helpless child. When he saw this child for the very first time. So innocent. He took ownership for that child by naming him. And by Joseph naming this child and taking this child as his own, he was adopted into the ancestry of King David. What a beautiful story. Even more, what I think is amazing about this story is how God transforms Joseph. He went from seeking justice for his situation to bestowing mercy on Mary and her baby boy. He went from seeing life in black and white lenses of Old Testament law to having a new perspective of color. He went from only having one possible option of leaving Mary to a new possibility of taking Jesus as his own child. He went from the idea of only having blood-related relatives to opening his heart and loving the Son of God as his own. In the end, it is love, not blood, that makes our family. Many of us have people in our lives who care and nurture us, like Joseph cared for Jesus. They are the shoulder to cry on and the comforting hug during the bumps and the bruises of life. They're there to cheer us up and to encourage us. They see the talent within us and they challenge us to reach our full potential. They have the words of wisdom at just the right time. They are present when others are not. They accept and love us when others reject us. These individuals take on many different names, like surrogate parents, adopted parents, step-parents, mentors, teachers, coaches, best friends, surrogate big brothers and big sisters. And while they are not biologically related to us, it doesn't change how much they love and care for us. For it's love, not blood, that makes our family. Speaking of families, the church has always been a second family to me. And no matter what denomination the church was, or their size, or their theological or social beliefs, it was always the people in the church that were like a second family. I remember my first preaching coach, who taught me the basics of homiletics. He got me passionate about preaching when I was in high school. He challenged me to not settle, but to keep striving and striving to write and preach better sermons. When I was in seminary, I remember one church lady who used to sit with me on Sunday mornings so that I wouldn't sit alone in service. She was like an adopted mom. While my mom was many states away, I was in school. She would always ask me how I was doing in school. She would get after me if I came to church with wet hair. She was always there to give me tips on dealing with the northeastern winters. Every week, she would listen about my new paper or project that I was working on. That church lady, among other countless people in the church, were my family. And they were there when I needed them the most. For it's love, not blood, that makes our family. In this coming week, as we celebrate Christmas with our families, let us remember that family is much more than those who are biologically related to you. Family is so much bigger. Family is all those people in your life who love and care for you. For it's love, not blood, that makes a family. My prayer and challenge for this church is that we will be an ever-loving, ever-inviting family that welcomes the stranger and the visitor with open arms. My prayer for this church is that we will love and nurture our children and our youth with tender care and patience, just like I had growing up. For it's love, not blood, that makes a family. Amen.